let's go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for joining conference call today. I'm Rob Warlick. I'm the sales manager here, sales admin here at EtherSpeak, and with me is Trip Maston. He's your sales channel manager, and we're going to be hosting today's discussion on using SIP as a safety net. Now, wise businesses are protecting their communication services with backup solutions, and more businesses are implementing SIP as a backup alternative, and this increases their service reliability. So today we're going to cover some of the benefits of SIP for backup, some scenarios in which customers are using our SIP products for failover, and we do want this session to be informative and conversational, so if you have any questions, please use the chat tool in the secure meeting to indicate a question, and we'll be sure to address that before or during the end when we open up for Q&A. Trip, you want to take over?
Sure. Thanks, Rob. Again, my name is Trip Maston. I'm a channel sales manager here with EtherSpeak. I want to personally thank everyone for joining today. We're excited to have you. Wanted to just give a brief overview about EtherSpeak. We started the company about 10 years ago, back in 2003, just as a simple PBX vendor. And then from there, we got into SIP trunking about 5 years ago and have expanded our offerings even further since then. We are headquartered in Fredericksburg, Virginia, about 45 minutes south of D.C. We are an internet telephony service provider. We provide service for small businesses, whether you have 1 employee, 5 employee, or whether you have nationwide franchises with anywhere from 50 to 200 or even 300 stores. So we can provide service to you regardless of what your needs may be. Not only do we offer SIP trunking, but we also have many other services as well. We provide VoIP as well as multiple different faxing solutions, so we can offer you fax to email, fax to server, fax to fax machine, things like that, as well as disaster recovery options, which we're going to talk a little bit further into today, as well as MPLS. We can provide service to the United States as well as Canada. So we definitely can get you covered regardless pretty much anywhere you are. We work directly with customers as well as have partnerships with resellers and leading vendors. So whether you're utilizing a ShoreTel system or a Zoltis system or Link or any one of those there, we can definitely provide the service for you. With that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about the role of SIP trunking, and Rob's going to speak to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks, Trip. Traditionally, businesses have moved away from analog or POTS, plain old telephone lines, voice service with the rise of PRIs, and then moved away from PRIs in the wake of VoIP services. You see the list there. Now, SIP Communications is the clear leader in the latest level of voice evolution. And so a business communications plan several years ago probably would have included a PRI as a primary with an analog as a backup for their voice. Now, the story most currently is between PRI and SIP. Now, while we see the trend, more and more businesses are trusting SIP for primary communications. SIP is serving just as well for backup solutions in many scenarios. And so, Trip, we've been seeing this trend among our own customer base, and we've had several scenarios in which SIP is being implemented for backup.
That's right, Rob, and just, a couple of examples. We had an example, I guess, what was it, a year or so ago with Hurricane Sandy. We had a lot of clients reach out to us that were utilizing just standard analog lines or PRR lines that went down due to the storms, due to flooding, or whatever the case may be. They reached out to us, and because a lot of them still had an internet connection, we were able to provide them SIP trunking, which provided them telephone service. And not only were they still able to operate their businesses, but they were also able to communicate with emergency personnel as well as family and things of that nature. So having SIP even as an alternative can definitely be beneficial in a lot of ways. As far as disaster recovery and things like that go, for instance, the tornadoes and stuff that just recently happened out in the Midwest, a lot of small businesses and things like that, they deal with that type of thing, whether it be storm recovery as far as cleanup goes or tree removal or things like that. If their phone lines are down, then their business is down. So not only can they not communicate, but they're not making any money as well. So having a SIP alternative, definitely can benefit you in a lot of different ways in all kinds of different situations, whether it be in a natural disaster or, a terrorist attack or whatever the case may be. It definitely provides you that backup option. So in the event of an emergency, you're not completely without communication.
No doubt about it. You see a list there of scenarios where PRI may be the primary for a particular business, and they'll have a SIP as an alternative, just in case those lines, that PRI line goes down, the PBX can go ahead and work with that SIP. And then also I've seen scenarios in which POTS lines or analog was the primary and SIP alternative. In fact, there was a law office I had as a client in the Maryland area, and he wanted to keep his POTS lines. He didn't want to move away. So he had this nice new PBX using these analog lines, and he went ahead and purchased EtherSpeak SIP as the backup. So it worked for him in that scenario. And then there are resellers I talk to that have customers that they want to phase into SIP. And so what they do is they'll start the customer up as with SIP as a backup, and then slowly migrate from the POTS or analog over to SIP being the primary. Speaking of which, that you see the line on SIP diversity, and we had just this past week, I chatted with a reseller who had a customer with SIP as their primary from another carrier, but he wanted to add our SIP, EtherSpeak SIP, over another connection just to have that diversity. To kind of give his network that that security, that safety net, and we've been seeing that more and more often, where IT guys or techs, communication technicians from these companies are wanting to add that safety net, so they use SIP to take that place. So here's the benefits of using SIP as a safety net. SIP offers more flexibility than alternative voice services with just a simple and easy access to setting. It also has unbeatable scalability and much lower cost than analog or PRI. So we'll take a moment here to just take a look at some of these benefits. When we're talking simple settings, you'll see that SIP provides automatic rerouting of calls. And that's just a matter of clicks of your mouse in a program. You can reroute calls. And if you're using SIP as a backup, your PBX will automatically reroute outbound calls over your SIP when failover is needed. That's on the PBX side. Likewise, inbound calls can be rerouted over your SIP by a setting with your primary carrier. If you set your SIP DID as a forward, the carrier will automatically forward those numbers over that SIP. And then finally, if you're using SIP as a primary, if you're using EtherSpeak SIP as a primary, then you have additional options to reroute inbound calls to any destination you choose. Could be a cell phone, could be another PBX, could be analog line. Wherever you wish for it to go, you can reroute to that destination. It's a very beneficial feature, especially in the case of disaster, and you need your employees to have phones or have the calls rerouted to their cell phones. Another benefit is the scalability. You could scale the size. Other SIP features include options to being able to use the amount of trunks that fit your needs. You can choose the amount of trunks based on the amount of end users you have. And you could have more, you could have less as needed. Whereas traditional voice services, they're limited to either one call path if you're using POTS line, or 23 use it or lose it call paths with PRI. With SIP, you can scale to whatever size you're needing. And so this is beneficial in a disaster recovery scenario in which you have your backup service will need to be ready and on standby to fill the influx of calls. If you use SIP in this regard, it only requires fewer trunks per end user. And so you see the example there. If you have 100 end users, you don't need 100 SIP trunks to match that. You only need to implement 30 standby disaster recovery SIP trunks. Likewise, if you have 10 users, you probably could do with only 2 disaster recovery SIP trunks. Could even go down to 1, whatever you need. So what this looks like your inbound calls being rerouted through these trunks while your primary service is being addressed by their technicians. So instead of sitting down twiddling your thumbs waiting for your carrier to fix the problem while you're losing money, not being able to take calls, SIP is able to be that recover, that standby, that safety net in situations like that. And then finally, before I send this back over to Tripp, I want to just point out that SIP can dramatically lower your cost up to 70% compared to traditional voice services. And EtherSpeak can add even more value to your SIP with our native connections to ShoreTel and other major vendors. Well, being able to use our voice service without having to purchase or maintain additional equipment, expensive equipment, is incredibly cost effective. Your business can go green by reducing power and energy with not having additional equipment, or you can save some green without having to pay for a SIP rate or any other device that stands between you and the SIP service. And so finally, EtherSpeak SIP lowers cost by offering trunks and bundles. And Tripp, you could maybe shed some more light on our options, but we have a small office package that's very popular, which offers 15 concurrent call paths with 2,500 minutes, starting at only $69 a month.
Wow.
Right, and speaking of cost, I mean, cost is what everyday life works off of, right? It all comes down to the dime. It all comes down to how much it's going to cost and, you know, whatever the situation may be, which is why having a backup option is so important. We have multiple different options, so regardless if you're using us as your primary provider or if you're just utilizing us as a backup, we have some disaster recovery bundles to where that you'll be able to utilize EtherSpeak SIP trunks to fail over to, you know, a regular analog T1 or a PRI when outages occur. So those are definitely available for you. And then, of course, service would automatically be restored when that host telephone system is back online. So you definitely would be able to continue operating, you know, without any huge impacts. Now, we also offer something that we are very proud about called ShadowVox. Now, what ShadowVox is going to do is it's going to mimic a predetermined on-site PBX configuration in a hosted environment. So say a natural disaster happens, something like a tornado or something that case may be, and it totally wipes out your system. Now, as we all know, when something like that happens, sometimes it may take 24 hours, it may take a week, it may take 2 weeks for them to get out there and get that service reinstated for you. Now, if you're running any type of business, you know, even a day with being out of service, with being out of your phone service and out of touch with your customers is costing you money. With ShadowVox, you wouldn't have to worry about that. So, you know, it would just fail over, so it would give you that peace of mind that your business would still be able to continue operating like any old day. You'd be able to continue your same call flow, routing your inbound calls to a designated endpoint. If you have a smartphone device like an iPhone or even an iPad, you'd be able to download an app called Bria, and that would be able to give you the ability to receive and transfer calls. So you'd be able to continue operating your business just as if your normal operations were up and running. We also do have another option called Redundant Trunk. And Redundant Trunk is for our SIP customers. So if you have our SIP service, then you'd be able to have our Redundant Trunk feature as well. And what that's going to do is it's automatically going to reroute your telephone numbers, your DIDs, to other designated telephone numbers. Now, so you'd be able to have them routed to, you know, a cell phone number or maybe another location or whatever the case may be. And then once the normal SIP trunking service was back up and running, of course, you would have the automatic restoration of your service as well. So definitely those are all some great options. So whether you have your SIP trunking services with us or if you're just still using that PRI, we can definitely help you out in regards to disaster recovery options. So I encourage you, if you don't currently have something set up in place, an emergency or a backup feature, definitely feel free to contact us and we'd be happy to figure out what option best suits your needs.
Absolutely. You see the information there on the slide. If you're interested in purchasing any of these disaster recovery options or any, maybe even just, you know, SIP bundle for your customer, we encourage you to do so. And here's how you do it. You connect with a sales manager like Tripp to find the best fit for your business. You know, talk about end users, talk about service addresses, and get the right fit for what you guys need. And once your order is complete, we can get you up and running in as little as 24 hours. In fact, once we get your, if we get all the order information on a Monday, we can get you up and running by that Wednesday. Not a problem. And in certain cases that needs to be sooner, we can work on a case-by-case basis. But it doesn't take a long time. It's very easy, very simple, and obviously worthwhile, as you can see, to have a SIP even just as a backup for your current PBX. So please do feel free to reach out to us. You see the number there. It's 877-378-9156. You can reach us by email at sales@iEtherSpeak.com, or if you'd like to, just float around our website at iEtherSpeak.com, and you can see a list of our products and fill out the contact form, and we'll get in touch with you that way.
Right. Thanks for that, Rob. And I just want to briefly touch about our partner program as well. I won't go into a whole lot of details on this, just kind of go for a broad overview. And if anybody has any questions in regards to that, feel free to ask at the end of this, or I can schedule a one-on-one phone conversation or webinar with you as well. But we do have multiple different partner program options. We have a residual commissions program, to where once you have signed up with 3 deals, then you would continuously, be paid out for those. We also have a referral commissions, which is where you would receive a one-time spiff. We have some other options as well as in regards to wholesale possibilities and even white label, which would give you the ability to sell our services with your name. So we definitely have multiple different options based upon what you're looking for or what type of business that you're running. We offer a phenomenal certification process so that you can learn about our products, learn what we're all about, so that you can go out there and sell our products and speak about it just as if you work directly for EtherSpeak. You would have to complete the necessary paperwork, of course. We do require that you attend our training webinars, and that's just so that we can make sure that we're all on the same page and that you're aware of all of our offerings and things. And then, of course, you'd be required to close 3 deals. Now, with being a partner with us, there's a lot of different benefits with that. We can provide you literature, even some slicks to provide to your customers to help with presentations and things like that. Be happy to even set up meetings with you and your sales staff, as well as even with your clients or customers. So definitely we're here for you. If you're interested in our partner program, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to explain that further, and we can take it from there.